What is Stoicism? Is it a philosophy, instructions to live, or even a religion? Are Stoics emotionless, indifferent, cold, or confident, resistant, wise, and free? There are multiple views in Stoicism. One of them is that Stoicism is the way to happiness and productivity. This characterizes a modern type of Stoicism, not exactly the one espoused by ancient Greeks. As to them, logic, or rather reason, the unimportance of health and wealth, and living a virtuous life in accordance with nature was the basis of this philosophy, which I would like to focus on. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. While I continue, the reason of this appeal will become clear. Most people tend to delude themselves into thinking that freedom comes from doing what feels good or what fosters comfort and ease. The truth is that people who subordinate reason to their feelings of the moment are actually slaves of their desires and aversions. The most important aspect of the original Stoicism was freedom and peace of mind as a result of the liberation of unhealthy dependencies and attachments and achieving emotional independence. To be exact, practicing this philosophy. The latter version of Stoicism was taught in ancient Rome by Epictetus, continued by his student Marcus Aurelius, and then Seneca. It was focused on the achievement of self-control, freedom, and mental tranquility as a primary goal. Health and wealth were also considered as important elements to the quality of life, although without dependency on them. You use and enjoy good health and money. However, if they are gone, you continue your life as content as before. We don't get to choose what happens to us, but we can always choose how we feel about it. And why on earth would you choose to feel anything but good? If the event must occur, amor fati, a love of fate, is the response. The goal was to acquire independence from the outside or external factors, for example, wealth and health. Stoics accept the fact that they are either present or absent, while maintaining the main focus on factors that we can change by will. This means living with the nature or living with God. Contentment or peace of mind, thus, in its purest expression, is a state we decide to live in, and this state is a philosophy worth pursuing. All that you see, that which comprises both God and man, is one. We are parts of one great body. Stoics saw God differently than main religions. The Stoics' God carries no human characteristics, as religions teach us. God is nature, the universe itself, and we are part of it. Stoics believe that our destiny is predetermined concerning events of our life, but how to react to them, and therefore how to live our life either miserable or joyful, is in our power. Consequently, the philosophy of Stoicism sets as its ideal the attainment of tranquility amid struggles and joy amid hardship. The Stoics thought that happiness, or rather peace of mind, was acquired by attaining virtue or excellence of character, achieved by living according to nature, in agreement with God. Whatever happens to you has been waiting to happen since the beginning of time. The twining strands of fate wove both of them together, your own existence and the things that happen to you. It is crucial to understand that they envisioned this principle not as supernatural or as a transcendent being, but as embodied in the fabric of nature, nature itself. The Stoics believed the entire cosmos to be one massive organism, of which each of us is but a part. Within the universe, the Stoics claim that all external events are wholly determined by antecedent events, and therefore that whatever happens is predetermined by fate. And now, before diving into the essence of Stoic philosophy, we'll first get familiar with some historical events. Philosophy's main task is to respond to the soul's cry, to make sense of, and thereby free ourselves from the hold of our grievances and fears. The conventional opinion considers Zeno of Citium a founder of what is known as Stoicism. Zeno was a wealthy merchant who was born around 334 BC and lived in Phoenicia. Most of what we know of his biography was provided in Diogenes Laertius' Lives and Opinions of Eminent Philosophers, written in the 3rd century BC. Diogenes Laertius tells us that Zeno's interest in philosophy began after he consulted an oracle on how to live the best possible life. Oracle has answered, to take on the complexion of the dead. So he commenced studying ancient philosophers, including teaching of prominent cynics such as Crates of Thebes, a famous cynic, and Xenophon, a famed Greek military commander and philosopher. This has created the basis for his subsequent philosophical development. Despite being wealthy due to his merchant activities, he was living a very modest, almost ascetic life. We become philosophers to discover what is really true and what is merely the accidental result of flawed reasoning, recklessly acquired erroneous judgments, well-intentioned but misguided teachings of parents and teachers, and unexamined acculturation. Zeno, who was viewed by his contemporaries as cold and insensitive, began teaching in the colonnade named Stoa in Athens around 300 BC, which eventually gave rise to the name of Zeno's disciples, Stoics. Zeno has established the main premises of Stoicism, namely living a life of virtue and in accordance with nature. His teachings have subsequently been evolved by major Stoic philosophers, namely Chrysippus, then Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, and Seneca. The Stoics did not advocate that one ignore all those things that are not up to us, things that Stoics name externals, rather things such as health, wealth, good food and drink, love and sexual pleasures. All these and more were things that Stoics enjoyed if they came his way. Respect your body needs. Give your body excellent care to promote its health and well-being. Give it everything it absolutely requires, including healthy food and drink, dignified clothing, and a warm and comfortable home. Yet, unlike the others, the Stoic is not attached to things outside of his control, so his happiness and state of mind are not dependent on them. They are not his goal. In their absence, the Stoic still lives a life filled with joy and tranquility. But when external goods do come his way, he can enjoy them without being anxious about losing them. In our power are will and all acts which depend on the will. Things not in our power are the body, the parts of the body, possessions, parents, brothers, children, country, and generally all with whom we live in society. Stoicism is the practical philosophy positioned on pure reason. The set of Stoic ideas is accompanied by a clear set of instructions on how to utilize them, so they become a way of life. This philosophy, when embraced, changes our views, perspective, and understanding of this world. Stoicism shows us the way to achieve tranquility and joy, becoming the best health medicine and mental therapy possible to protect your mind and body and improve the quality of life. Happiness is commonly mistaken for passively experienced pleasure or leisure. The only worthy object of all our efforts is a flourishing life. True happiness is a verb. It's the ongoing, dynamic performance of worthy deeds. The flourishing life, whose foundation is a virtuous intention, is something we continually improvise, and in doing so, our souls mature. It is critical to distinguish happiness from contentment or peace of mind. Happiness, as it is commonly understood, is caused by external events, while contentment is a state of mind independent of events that cannot be controlled. Happiness reflects the constant change of external events, but tranquility, achieved by observing Stoic practices, lasts a lifetime undisturbed by the externals. If a man is unhappy, remember that his unhappiness is his fault, for God has made all men to be happy, to be free from perturbations. What we call happiness is a temporary state mostly based on the mind-created sensorial experience. Its conditional existence is exposed once you apply the Stoics' view to the common concept of happiness. So-called happiness caused by the satisfaction of needs and wants always remains transient and shifting. Epictetus continues, "Your happiness depends on three things, all of which are within your power: your will, your ideas concerning the events in which you are involved, and the use you make of your ideas." In its simplest and most important faculty, Stoicism appears a philosophy based on the transcendence of destructive emotions. You encounter an emotion, but realize what it is, observe it, and move forward. The observed and controlled emotion has no longer power over our minds. Control your emotions and feelings. Don't let them rule your behavior. Know them, be aware of them, and understand their source. We are responsible for our actions. The choice to choose how to act and think is the most powerful tool in our possession. Self-control is a powerful tool to free you from bad emotions and actions and to obtain independence. We don't want to be controlled by the objects our anger or resentment is directed to. So Stoics teach us. Emotions such as fear, affection, and hatred explain most of the occasions on which people depart from rationality. Stoicism teaches us to live psychologically detached life, realizing that we do have the power to control our emotions, since they are the product of our own mind. This philosophy directs us to live a life of virtue and purpose, focusing on the present moment. Stoics welcome and even love change while appreciating and accepting the things we cannot control. According to Epictetus, we view ourselves as the objects of challenge. Use your life events as an opportunity for continuing progress. Be satisfied in everything with being a philosopher. And if you wish to seem also to any person to be a philosopher, appear so to yourself, and you'll be able to do this. To recognize the practical approach to philosophy promoted by the ancients, we can turn to Epictetus' counsel that philosophy is primarily a matter of deeds, not words, so we can appear philosophers to ourselves. For the ancients, philosophy was a way of life, not a set of ideas or theories. Epictetus explained that Stoicism rather focuses on moral progress than moral perfection. Perfection is always questionable and ambiguous, but progress is valid and observable. To use philosophy as taught by Hellenic philosophers, the wisdom we gather must penetrate our being and express itself through the action in the world. The life of reason is a life of wisdom. The marks of good reasoning are clarity, consistency, rigor, precision of definitions, and avoidance of ambiguity. This is the reason, pun intended, why tyrannical rulers often viewed philosophers' teachings as a danger to their regimes. Reason is the foundation of Stoicism. All actions of the Stoic philosopher are based on reason, deviation from which is a digression from the key principles of Stoicism. Fundamental, inseparable Stoic values, wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance reside on the bedrock of reason. So Epictetus continues. Stoicism is a philosophy of real life for real people living real lives. To use philosophy from the point of view of ancient philosophers, the wisdom we gather must be absorbed into our being and express itself through the practical response. And just as body gathers strength through physical training, It is a philosophical training that toughens and trains the mind, making it better adapted to the conditions of living. Seneca teaches us, philosophy molds and builds the personality, orders one's life, regulates one's conduct, shows one what one should do and when one should live undone, sits at the helm and keeps one on the correct course as one is tossed about in perilous seas. Without it, no one can lead a life free of fear and worry. Why do people learn philosophy in the modern world? Isn't the goal the same, liberation from unhealthy dependencies, achieving peace of mind and living a joyful life? The goal of ancient philosophers was the attainment of wisdom as a way to transform the self. He, the philosopher, is the one, in fact, who knows the fundamental thing, how to live. Many of the great ancient philosophers viewed humans as for the most part living misguided lives, filled with fear, ignorance and idiocy, which can be certainly applied to the modern world. Human psychology hasn't changed much through the ages. As Epictetus has stated, popular perceptions, values, and ways of doing things are rarely the wisest. Many pervasive beliefs would not pass appropriate test of rationality. Conventional thinking, its means and ends, is essentially uncreative and uninteresting. Its job is to preserve the status quo for overly self-defended individuals and institutions. This view never seems to get old. So does his student Marcus Aurelius tells us. The universe is transformation. Life is opinion. Our opinions tend to excessively complicate life events, which causes us to suffer. Stoicism simplifies things to achieve tranquility and clarity of thinking. We are like actors in a play. The divine will has signed us our roles in life without consulting us. Some of us will act in a short drama, others in a long one. When we become old and frail, we ask ourselves, what have we achieved? What have we been striving for and spent our life on? So we begin to live by the past emotions, by remembering those fleeting happy moments which in reality blocked our way to tranquility and joy. To some, the achievements in various fields of science or literature do indeed create a genuine sense of satisfaction. Satisfaction that their life wasn't wasted, or the satisfaction of raising children whose life are also limited and their happiness questionable. We have to fill up our lives with meaning just to make sense of it. We do not allow ourselves to question ourselves and admit that all this was just our story and possibly a delusion. Hence, our life needs true meaning, which allows us to avoid regret and fill out emptiness. Our busy minds are forever jumping to conclusions, manufacturing and interpreting signs that are not there. Realizing that we constantly face the unknown, we must believe strongly that there is some greater force working within and through us. As long as we embrace and accept the appearances of life, we must fill our life with the most important ingredient, its meaning. Stoics teach us to always remember that, as Epictetus stated. It's true, there is no obviously apparent meaning to our lives. Cruelty, injustice, bodily discomfort, illness, annoyances, and inconveniences, big and small, are the prosaic facts of any day. Stoic philosophy offers to live the life of virtue by seeking wisdom to find its meaning. For Stoics, the reason for forming our life resides in the belief that we have power over our happiness, so we can master a meaningful life by handling our emotions and thus forming our relationship with others. Stoics believe that the ultimate aim is living in accordance with nature accepting what life presents to us, and cultivating the Stoic values via acceptance and embracing challenges and suffering. Life cannot have meaning without suffering, as suffering cannot be meaningless. Happiness is impossible to feel if there isn't something that makes us unhappy, something that causes what we call suffering. So our ephemeral happiness is just the absence of suffering. Loss is nothing other than change, and change is the delight of universal nature, according to whose will all things come to pass. Accept and welcome change, welcome like an old friend. Change brings new growth. The Stoic thought that people needed to be more conscious of the transitory nature of all external things in their lives. This process is called futurorum malorum premeditatio, or negative visualization. Marcus Aurelius also used negative visualization to help him live in the present by reflecting on the fact that his death could come at any moment. And as Seneca tells us, he robs present ills of their power who has perceived their coming beforehand. Everything is always changing. This is one of those truths that can be both completely terrifying and completely freeing. Terrifying because all good things do come to an end, and freeing because no singular circumstance, including your perspective, will stay the same. And at every moment we should ask the only question: am I to enjoy or to endure? Suffering becomes beautiful when anyone bears great calamities with cheerfulness, not through insensibility but through the greatness of mind. Stoicism teaches us how to accept and embrace suffering, seeing it as a way of growing, learning, and liberation. The choice is yours. One of the main things that affect the quality of thoughts is the inability of people to live in the present. Instead, they too often dwell on the past events or worry about the future. Marcus Aurelius learned from Epictetus to appreciate each moment that life presents. Stoicism delivers a state of tranquility, full understanding and acceptance of shortcomings and adversities of life, so suffering appears a natural flow of events. If it's freedom you seek, then wish nothing and shun nothing that depends on others, or you will always be a helpless slave. One of the defining characteristics of the Stoics was an unwavering commitment to focusing only on what was in their direct control: their will, their actions, their effort, and their acceptance of things outside of it. Here is the famous saying of Marcus Aurelius: "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Let's sink it in. The Stoics believed that it was not the attainment of any external goods, be it fame, good looks, power, or wealth, that were key to a good life, but rather a mastery of the mind. External things always change due to factors outside of our control. So if we stake our happiness on any of these things, we give up control of our lives. The Stoics tell us that we can learn to reframe how we interpret bad events in our life, thus minimizing the impact of negative emotions. So we take control of this fact and use it to our advantage. Here Marcus conveys this important piece. The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. We can control the way our mind interprets the events of our lives by observing our thoughts. When something happens, there are too many alternative ways of looking at it. Whether we are aware of it or not, we construct how we present the event of the world to ourselves and produce emotions respectively. Awareness. When we talk a lot about trivial things, we ourselves become trivial. or our attention gets taken up with trivialities. You become what you give your attention to. The quality of your attention determines the quality of your life. What we watch, what we read, what we are around. Whatever consumes our attention consumes and shapes us. If you expose yourself to enough negativity and lies, all that you see and do will be colored as such. Epictetus teaches us. The real test of personal excellence lies in the attention we give to the often neglected small details of our conduct. Stoics always question things, employing critical thinking as a powerful self-defense tool. To safeguard tranquility, we must determine the source of something that may affect us and then forge our attention and reaction. Attention is a finite resource, so we must use it diligently and carefully, as Seneca explains. Isn't it the height of folly to learn inessential things when time is so desperately short? Wasting time means ignoring the quality of our life, leading to frustration, dissatisfaction, and eventually regret. In essence, we have two choices: become masters over our attention or be mastered by the forces that demand it. Take your attention off what you think other people think of the results of your actions. Defer instead to your original moral intuitions and follow them. To be content and master peace of mind, identify, pay attention to, and pursue what is meaningful to you. The reason, not what you love, as love is fickle, but the meaning is the only thing that persists and remains. Marcus Aurelius is precise here. There is a limit to the time assigned to you, and if you don't use it to free yourself, it will be gone and will never return. External things are not the problem. It's your assessment of them. The actions and opinions of other people, our reputation, the amount of wealth we amass, and our family are examples of things that are not up to us. These things can be somewhat influenced by our actions, but ultimately they are outside of our complete control. The things which are up to us, or within our complete control, are the things that emerge from our minds, our opinions, judgments, beliefs, desires, and goals. As Epictetus explains us, a man's master is he who is able to confer or remove whatever that man seeks or shuns. Whoever then would be free, let him wish nothing, let him decline nothing which depends on others, else he must necessarily be a slave. Be your own master, tells a Stoic. According to Stoics, misery and suffering result from the fact that people make their happiness dependent on things that are ultimately outside of their control, and in doing so enslave themselves. Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. What do we admire? Externals. What do we spend our energies on? Externals. Is it any wonder then that we are in fear and distress? To give up our self-imposed slavery, we must regard as indifferent all those things which do not lie within our control, and make our peace of mind dependent only on those things which are up to us. When our tranquility is linked to things outside of our control, we experience all kinds of worries. What if my significant other leaves me? What if I remain alone forever? What if I lose my job? What if my investment crash? What if someone insults me? What if freedom dies and tyranny takes over? What if I get sick and die? As Epictetus explains, these are not the thoughts of a tranquil sage, but of a slave with many masters. And who is your master? Whoever has power over the things you are trying to gain or avoid. There is nothing wrong with preferring and enjoying certain externals when possible. Or who is in their right mind would not prefer health over sickness, wealth over poverty, freedom over tyranny? As a tool of self-protection, Epictetus tells us, trust nothing and nobody but yourself. Be ceaselessly watchful over your beliefs and impulses. He means that in this case, we become dependent on others, be it a situation or a person, so we may deviate from our beliefs and virtues that make the essence of the Stoic's life. Instead of merely enjoying or just accepting external things, we attach our tranquility to them, making us dependent on them, and by doing this, we place our well-being in a perilous state. Freedom. Where shall I seek the good and the bad? Within, in the things which are my own. But in what does not belong to you, call nothing either good or bad, or profit or damage, or anything of the kind. By cultivating the God within, as they say, the Stoics believed, we could achieve inner freedom notwithstanding the nature of our fate. We can't change what has been predetermined. However, this inner freedom would allow one to respond and react to these events freely and consciously, and therefore control the effect that such events had on our state. Peace of mind and freedom require clear understanding of one principle. Some things are within our control, and some things are not. Only then inner tranquility becomes possible. As Plato tells us, we must accept what happens as we would accept the fall of dice, and then arrange our affairs in whatever way reason best determines. We accept events as they are, but we do arrange our life according to reason, as the Stoics teach us. This employment of critical thinking can deviate from societal norms and established opinions. Reason always takes priority, and critical thinking is one of the pillars of the Stoic philosophy. Key to Stoic philosophy of life is the belief that what is the most important to our well-being, a tranquil existence, is not what happens to us, but the inner discourse that accompanies the events of our life. And here we are returning to Epictetus. It is not things that trouble us, but our judgments about things. Stoics tell us that our goal to become rich and achieve inner peace is not having many things, but having few wants. We always try to attain and achieve more, giving huge importance to the impression we make on others. By not accepting what is, no matter how it looks and feels like, we live by delusions, call it happiness or unhappiness as the case may be, and allow our mind to create a story upon story about our life situations, built exclusively on our perceptions and judgments. But what about periods of our life when we face not just the absence of certain external goods, but grave misfortunes and adversity? What advice does the Stoic provide for these times? For this, we must listen to the words of Epictetus. It is not things that trouble us, but our judgments about things. The art of living is more like wrestling than dancing. The Stoics were extremely cognizant of the fact that the vast majority of people were incapable of dealing with the hardships of life without becoming worn down and eventually defeated. The Stoic thought of philosophy as a tool we can use to help us sculpt and shape our character into an impenetrable fortress, one able to withstand struggles and adversity with calmness and resilience, accepting life events and succeeding in wrestling, as Marcus tells us. Choice. For choice cannot be hindered or harmed by anything that lies outside the sphere of choice, but only by choice itself. Nothing except our own judgment is capable of causing us to become disturbed or confused. Stoicism is a philosophy that above all teaches us how to make wise choices among an avalanche of choices. The ancient philosophers did not seek out adversity, but when it struck, they viewed it as an opportunity, not a curse. The Stoic attains abiding tranquility by cultivating mastery of the one thing in the world considered fully within our control, our power of judgment and choice. What can be more boring than an unobstructed life without challenges and adversities to fight and overcome and forge our spirit? He who is not contented with what he has would not be contented with what he would like to have. For Stoics, Socrates has always been a role model. He accepted the situation and events, including his bad-tempered wife and spiteful son, without judging and recognizing all as just life inflections and the way to develop endurance and the mind of a philosopher. Epictetus always reminds us we can't control the impressions others form about us, and the effort to do so only debases our character. In trying to please other people, we find ourselves misdirected toward what lies outside our sphere of influence, things external to us. No matter how good we are, there are always people who dislike us for whatever reason, envy or even hate. As a result, we may lose our life purpose no matter how imaginary it may seem. Epictetus tells us, "Keep your attention focused entirely on what is truly your own concern, and be clear that what belongs to others is their business and none of yours. Content yourself with being a lover of wisdom, a seeker of truth and reason. Return and return to what is essential and worthy. Do not try to seem wise to others." Marcus Aurelius reminds us, "I have often wondered how it is that every man loves himself more than all the rest of men, but yet sets less value on his own opinion of himself than on the opinion of others." Being overly concerned with the opinions of others means, according to Marcus, leading a life of frustration, dissatisfaction, and anger. Does it sound like a happy life? Being dependent on the opinions of others is like putting yourself in chains voluntarily and being extremely scared of them being removed. "By the gods," Epictetus said, "I would love to see a Stoic, but you cannot show me the one fully formed." We have to admit that the principles guiding the Stoic's life may seem extreme to many and difficult to follow. However, it doesn't mean that we should give up our efforts to liberate ourselves from unhealthy dependencies to achieve a peace of mind. The process itself and the steps of achievement will keep forming the Stoic state of mind, a freedom-based reality. It strengthens our immunity to adversities of our existence, so this magnificent scent of freedom is becoming the way of life. Stoic philosophy is the best natural adaptation to hardship of life the man could invent. In Stoicism, control of emotions, acceptance of things we can't change but maintaining our independence from them, living by Stoic values, is paramount to achieving a real reflection of the world. Stoicism is a continuous process of mental adaptation, or rather a mental cure, while remaining an amazing life travel. Here we see the unity of thought with Buddhism when Buddha teaches us, "It is better to travel well than to arrive."